But then also you'll get like, you'll find valleys where you think, okay, that's part, I could use that. That's not bad. Hi there. In this video we're going to take a little bit of a detour and we're going to start looking at some tools and some techniques where you can maybe reinvigorate the way you look at the basics. Let me first ask you a question. Have you if you've shot film, or if you used to shoot film, do you remember the, call it mystique, or the process of, you'd shoot, you couldn't see the result, you'd send it in, you'd get it back, and there'd be this kind of surprising result. A little bit, wasn't exactly what you expected. You couldn't see it, so you had a day or so, or maybe a week to wait. And then when you finally saw it, there was often some interesting little textures or some color shifts or strange things that you wouldn't quite expect. They don't look wrong, and it was integrally part of the process, that there was just this little extra random magic button going on inside the process. So let's have a look at some basic tools and let's see if we can reignite that spark in an interesting way. Okay, so I've got a standard image here, and let's say I want to just go on the primary tool and I just want to add a whole lot of contrast, right? The first thing, and it's a well-documented thing, you probably know all about it, is that in this tool, either if you increase contrast like this, normal lift, gamma, gain, if you do a similar thing, if you stretch the image out, you get the effect you get is that not only do you get the contrast, but you also get an increase in saturation, quite a strong increase in saturation. Put in my heavy contrast, and the saturation expands as well. Well, first I'll do the good practice thing and set my mid-grey to roughly to the mid-grey of DaVinci Wide Gamut, intermediate, so that when I add my contrast, it kind of works in the right place. So that's for starters going to be a good thing to do. Secondly, over the years our habit was always to add the contrast and then reduce the saturation, and these two things kind of worked in a pair. You'd push it up and then you'd simultaneously pull the saturation down, and then that was just what we always did. Another tool that we always had, even from the hardware telecine days, we had the separate luminance channel, which has always been a feature of Resolve, where you could push the gain up just on this luminance channel, push the lift down, and then set the mids how you wanted them, and the saturation wouldn't change. Wonderful, right? It's great for bleach bypass looks, and you can get this contrast without having to do the second counter operation of pulling down the saturation. This is all kind of probably territory that you all know about. So nowadays there's actually something that can help us with that. So let's say we put in our contrast, we don't like the saturation, but what if we go to the node here and go to the composite mode and we put it into luminosity? Then whatever corrections going on that node, we only get the changes in luminance being applied. So that's another way you can counteract that. You want to test the theory and you say, okay, so theoretically if I now swing the saturation, there'll be no effect, right? There is a minor effect going on there. I can see some slight shifts. So yeah, it's not totally surgically clean, but you can basically just leave the saturation alone, set the load into luminance, and it's not bad. What other ways could we do that? I like a nice high contrast without bumping the saturation. Obviously the HDR tool, it's photometrically aware. As long as we've set our timeline color space, we can put in a good contrast. It pivots on the mid-gray and the saturation doesn't move at all. So, that's pretty good. Now, are the results the same? Good question. I've saved these versions where I've spent some time to get all of the versions, trying to get them all the same. So good old S-curve contrast plus desaturation. This is just using the Y channel. The signal stretches slightly differently from there to there, slightly different but close. The HDR tool, very close, very close. The one that's slightly different because it does have an S-curve. The HDR tool doesn't have the S-curve. Using the Y channel on lift, gamma, gain, obviously that also doesn't have the curve. What are the other options? So we could go over to our curves palette, make sure that we were only using the Y channel to get the same effect. We could select our picker there, and then below mid-gray, we could have one part of the curve, above mid-grey we could have another part of the curve, and you'll see that you can get something very similar. So there's a great range of tools here. I mean, what's nice about this tool is that you can go in further and you put it into editable splines, and then if you wanted to adjust the slopes of anything here, you can do some nice fine adjustments, and any specific counter curves and things like that, you can actually do that. You can also zoom this nice and big if you really want to finesse this curve finely and tweak all these handles. It is something there. So yeah, I think that's a nice option. But if you do have the time, this option is a bit harder under the pressure of a client sitting right next to you. So the other key component is this split toning. Now, it's so easy to go too heavily with some split toning. It really is, and it's often it's too intentional. So obviously there's the stereotype of teal and orange, and blue and the black, and warming the tops. So it's very easy to wash the image and make it dirty. Also, through our muscle memory and that, we kind of go in pre-programmed directions, which are kind of takes a bit of that mystery that I was talking about. We want some happy accidents along the way. We want to control the process for sure, but we'd love it to have the process kind of give us some results that we can feed, or that can feed our creativity. I've prepared a few options here, and now what they're based on is using the splitter combiner node. So you can find it in here under nodes, the splitter combiner node, using Alt-Y. It takes up a lot of real estate. So that's our starting point. You can see how we have our splitter combiner sitting in there, and it breaks apart into the red channel, green channel, blue channel, and then recombines them. So just to give you a clear idea of what's going on here. What if I do, say, a node sizing on just the red channel? You can see clearly that we're affecting only that channel. You could do some weird effects like that. So in this case, what I've done is I'm just using curves, just kind of like Photoshop levels, kind of that kind of thing. So just on my red channel now, if I just tweak the peak of the red and the bottom of the red, I can get the effect of a split tone. Some change, some distortion, some stretch in just the red channel, such that I get a kind of a split tone effect going on. Now, if you just look at the vector scope here, and I rock backwards and forwards, you can see that changing one way pulls the signal in one direction. Now bear in mind that I'm working on the red channel, so it's almost like an axis, a red to cyan axis. I can almost do a balancing act now with the second control, because I still want the signal to be pretty much centered where it was. But I just want the split tone effect in place. I don't want to get something like this, where my image is now moving off to the one side too much. The way that we grade, so the technique is like focusing a camera, finding the sweet spot. Too much, too little, too much, too little. Find that point in the middle where you think it's great. This isn't a technique that makes things easier, it makes things harder actually. But what I'm saying is that maybe that can give you some interesting results. Breaking apart the three channels, tweaking them, and seeing what happy accidents you can come up with. Maybe the blue channel needs to go the other way. We can actually shorten the blue channel and then always go back. Think, okay, this magenta in the black is too much, so I'll neutralize the black a bit, green a little bit less, and yeah, you can come up with some quite interesting results like this. Just because it's a different tool and it forces you to, it's almost like crossing your hands, or just forces you to break your habit, or a bit of uncertainty, and then that uncertainty combined with trying and experimentation can lead you to some interesting results. Okay, so that's a basic level of it. The one that I really like is this, where it's the same thing. It's still breaking out into three. But what I'm using here, I've already set up this example, is S-curve contrast. So it's just a good old S-curve contrast in the primary panel in each, because it's going simultaneously. See how it's stretching the red channel? It's simultaneously giving you some surprising effects, because it's doing a lot of changes within that S-curve. And it's symmetrical about mid-gray, if we've set our mid-gray correctly. And it has a kind of a pleasing effect, but also that, what I was talking about, that surprising result. So I'd really encourage you to go and give this a try. It can give you some nice little surprising effects little happy surprises, like you find your Easter eggs, right? Like you didn't know they were hiding there, and you just, oh, stop, wait, that's really good. And it's something that you wouldn't have, a point that you wouldn't have driven to, intentionally driven to, but you've come across it just by the way of experimenting with this tool. I could take it one step further, and this is relying on a tool from Thatcher Freeman. He's got lots of tools which can be set into a random mode. So like based on a certain random seed, it can generate a certain pattern. So I've applied the DCTL here, and for each of my channel, you can see that I've set this random seed component to a different value. It's almost like I'm several steps away from the direct control, which puts this uncertainty or randomness in between you and the actual interface, which can lead to some interesting results. So have a look here. As I move, obviously it's random, so you get some very like jumpy, like quite strange results. But quite clearly you'll go through ones where you think, oh no, that's terrible. But then also you'll find valleys where you think, okay, I could use that. That's not bad. So it's quite interesting. It's almost like you're abstracting yourself from being totally in control. It's not like you're losing control and getting everything messed up, but you're forfeiting a bit of direct control in terms of getting some quite interesting benefits. And obviously the ones that are just way off, you'll know they're off, but it's a nice way to it's like a palate cleanser, especially if you're getting tired and you've worked too long, and these kind of tools can let you find some really interesting results. So maybe go and give those a try and see what you can come up with. Also, with the upcoming Look Design Masterclass, I thought it would be useful to talk about some of the course content, and ideally give you a bit of a preview of what to expect. And for people who are going to attend, just that can be your kind of on-ramp to get into the mindset and get you prepped for the class. So it'll be a live Zoom webinar spread over 3 days. And it's an intensive class that'll cover the creative, technical, business, and social aspects of look design. Because this is a team effort. It's a creative collaboration, right? All of my courses, I do have some discussion on the business aspects of our craft. It's the stuff that I've learned through the years that I wish someone had told me when I was starting out. So I always think it's important to have a bit of it in there. We'll touch briefly on the current state of the film industry and how to best engage with clients early in the process of quoting and briefing to help you win the job. Find ways to show that you're a willing collaborator and have the ability to finish the job and have something unique to contribute to make the job better. Of course, that's what we want. So then, looking at the actual look design process itself, we'll discuss the key players in the production team and how they can contribute and benefit from look design at all the different stages, and also how to best integrate it into your workflow, which is very important. Also, I like to look at how the integration of look design into every aspect of the whole process, every stage of the whole process, actually raises the creative level of the job and inspires the whole production team, which I think is very important. Obviously, for look design, our main guide is the story and what the story needs. Find the look that tells the story the best, helps the viewer immerse in that story the best. On the course, we examine the process of translating story elements and abstract emotional concepts, cues or discussions that you'll get from the client, and how to translate those into tools and techniques in your look design. As part of the course, I'll propose a framework of understanding for various well-known theories of color palette design, such as the color systems themselves, color harmonies, color symbolism, and all these things. And then we'll also link those to the eras of film production. We'll look at some of the theory and history of chemical film as it was used in the movie-making processes throughout the ages. And I'll supply with lots of references and explanation of film terminology. We'll also look at the current landscape of film emulation strategies, and I'll give you some pointers if you're interested on doing your own film emulation process. On the technical and theoretical side, we need to understand about color science and how it gets used in the image formation process, but also about aspects of human cognition and how this varies from the bulk standard color science which often gets put out there. And most importantly, how we can leverage these cognition behaviors into the storytelling process. We'll look at the various creative and technical tasks required during the look design on a film, and I'll pose questions about how we should view this artistic versus technical split, because there obviously are some things which are must-haves, these technical components, and the others which you can view them as creative components that actually can be added to taste or blended as you feel is needed for each job. Including this, there'll be a deeper discussion on how to choose color management systems and the various options available and what effects they have on your look design process and your creative choices. We'll also look at how to build a node tree that's most suitable for your way of working, because now there's so many options. We've got groups, we've got layer stacks, and we need to make sure that can meet your creative requirements and can also meet the various delivery formats and delivery standards that you need to meet on each job. We'll also look deeper into the components and strategies of look design, encompassing built-in tools and also third-party tools like TCTLs and many other options. I'll detail how the basic tools get used and combined to build looks on a show and some novel usages that you maybe haven't seen before. All the way through the course, we're going to be looking at images and look design examples. We'll cover a wide range of genres, including commercials, feature films, TV series, as well as various storytelling devices that get employed during look design. Things like day for night or flashbacks, changes in time periods, and other such things. If you have any questions about the live online masterclass, feel free to put them in the comments below or DM myself or Jai, and we can answer all your queries. The ticketing link is in the description below, and all the purchases are done through my website. We have a 10% early bird discount for those who register straight away, and a further 10% discount for people who filled out the survey last month. Also, for those that join the course, you'll be given the new Filmverse Lite plugin for free and access to the Colorist Foundry Discord, where we can continue the discussion after the course. I found that the biggest long-term gain of joining these courses is the people that you meet and the communities that form. There's so much benefit, other than the in-depth course that I've prepared for you guys, which is obviously going to be a great summary of this whole kind of slightly mysterious look design concept. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to explain lots of the concepts, the creative, the technical processes, and also help build your confidence with interfacing with clients and doing look design on a wide range of projects. But the main thing is that there'll be a community that will form afterwards, and you can bounce your questions off your collaborators and your fellow participants, and you'll see that that's how your skill really grows as well. So with that, I'll say bye for now, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the live masterclass next month.